What's your fuck this, I quit story? Was getting screamed at in a meeting by some marketing jerk that was literally demanding my technical group perform magic on a completely unrealistic time schedule with almost no resources. Literally screaming at me in front of about 8 of my peers. Calling me incompetent. Just do your job. All of that. I stood up. Said I refuse to be talked to like that. And left the meeting. Normally if you just get up and leave these types of meetings, you're fired. Boss scheduled a meeting with me later in the afternoon after hearing about it. Figured I'd be walked out. Was told they fired the marketing guy. That was my F-it. I quit moment. But the company kept me on and fired the other guy. Pretty happy. It's been a solid place to work ever since. My mom's. I was studying overseas and my parents booked a trip to come out at the end of the school term. Bringing along my 2 siblings, one who lived away from home. The other about to start college. It was a month-long trip. With lots of prepaid flights. Trains. Hotels, plus it would likely be the last big trip we all took together. Obviously. Both my parents requested and secured approved PTO months in advance. It was the month of June, typical summer vacation. A couple days before the trip was to happen. My mom's boss hands her an assignment. Mom hands it back. Saying she can't take it on as she has a month-long vacation about to start. My folks don't believe in hyperbole. But trip of a lifetime would be a fair description. Boss says, oh yay. Sorry. You can't take vacation anymore. Mom says if you cancel my PTO. I quit. Boss. Blank stare. Mom handed in her notice and left. We had an amazing trip. She got a new job on return. Joined a call center with the obvious shady pay structure. They said the calls are inbound, so I thought, hey, that's not too bad then. Turns out the inbound calls were generated by their robocall system, indirectly implying that they were Google but never saying so, and we were directed to use some dubious answer if someone asked, are you Google? Apostrophe. After getting yelled at and cussed out and constantly getting people who had been called many times before and were clearly irate. I just got up and left in the middle of the day. I also complained to Google that these guys were pretending to be Google. And these guys were shitty scared of getting complaints like that. Seriously f***ed up people. Had a super shitty job at a donut shop. I was promised a raise. Which I never received. We always worked alone at the shop. So I never got to know anyone else. Never got their phone numbers. Yet the non-written policy was that you would find someone to cover your shifts. One day, I woke up and knew immediately that I had strep throat. Went to the doctor and he confirmed that it was strep. And it was really bad. Worst I have ever had it. So knowing that I was contagious for at least 2 days. And knowing that I shouldn't be around people or food. And I'm not even able to speak. I texted my boss. I didn't have a shift scheduled until the next day. Told her I won't be in for at least a week because of my strep. She told me I will have to find someone to cover my shifts. I told her that's not possible because I don't have anyone's number. I can't speak. And in all honesty was in so much pain I just wanted to pass out. She told me that if I cannot find someone to cover, I will have to come in. And if I don't come in I won't have a job. I replied with cool. Guess I don't have a job then. I returned my gear 2 weeks later once I had recovered. Never spoke to that CNT again. Kinda long. Sorry. I was a manager at a company where the executives were ineffective. I worked 60 hours a week most of the time and had to do all of my director's duties because he didn't understand our systems. The work environment was also pretty hostile and passive aggressive. People cried on the job daily in other departments. Slightly less in mine. Managers and staff would snap at other departments the same way the executives did because of the stress. I tried to take care of my department and make sure they weren't being abused or taken advantage of. I had 3 days leave for a death in the family. But had to work every day from home and the funeral itself. It was especially vexing because it was to redo the same thing every day that my boss would just forget to complete and need done again the next day. I brought this to his attention. As well as all the other issues. And he said he would try to do better. Months went by and it got worse. Finally, our team sat down with him and told him things needed to change. I told him that the environment was more hostile and aggressive than ever and the team agreed. He told me that was my perception and we needed an attitude change. Then left for a meeting, which I had provided him the data for. I cleared out my desk and left. Quit with HR. For me, the kicker is that he kept assigning me tasks and insisted that I was still working there for days. Never been more relieved to quit in my life. My first job, at a pizza delivery place. I was almost 18 and I overheard my manager, in his 40s, and a few delivery drivers talking about throwing me a birthday party and spiking my drinks so they could do things to me. They had no idea I was around the corner listening. Maybe they were joking. Maybe they weren't. I didn't care. I quit right then and there. Update. Whoa. People seem really interested in my pizza place experience. Thought I'd share some other crazy stuff that had happened prior to quit day, all of which should have made me quit a long time ago. But again, a combo of fear and just plain really uncomfortable with confrontation causing problems. 2 lesbian co-workers that were dating each other and would pinch me a lot and tell me how perfect I was for the 2 of them because one liked straight girls and one liked underage girls. My manager would straight up tell me to show him my tits. I declined. He would get mad if any of the male pizza delivery drivers talked to me for too long. I was called Barbie around the pizza place. One time, I said bite me sarcastically and my manager bit me. I almost quit from that. But I did get a slap in that I did not get in trouble for. Other than my manager saying if I hit him again he would hit me back. Scared of not having a job. Scared of manager finding me at my house, that he had my address, etc. Still glad I finally quit when I did though and didn't let things progress any further. My first job was at a fast food restaurant. I only lasted about 3 months. The manager was sleazy. The employees were straight up lazy. I had to mop up one day. There was an area in the kitchen where you kinda have to lean forward so you can slide the mop under a counter. The manager decided to come out of the office and just stand behind me and watch. I looked at him and asked, "Is there something wrong?" He said no, but just wanted to make sure I cleaned correctly. Right. Because there was no worry about how well I cleaned the rest of the kitchen. But now that I'm bending over there is. I immediately stopped and walked out. Had a catering job at this restaurant. We had a big event and had to move all the furniture downstairs. The event lasted until like 2 AM and then they made us move all the furniture back upstairs while all the servers were literally sitting there counting their tips from the night that we didn't get any of. Ended up getting off work at 4 AM and they expected us to be back at 8 AM for a breakfast event. Said FCK, I quit and never went back. It sucks when you are the hardest working person at a job and get no recognition. 16 and working minimum wage at a movie theater. For a while it was great fun. Got to go see movies for free on my off days. Free popcorn from whatever was left at the end of the night. Slutty co-worker who showed me her boobs. Then new manager came in. I'm sure a lot of us have had this type. Overnight no more free movies. No more free popcorn. She drilled a hole in the wall between the office and the concession line to make sure we were constantly working and never talking to each other. She was a huge fan of the phrase if you don't like it then leave. You're all a dime a dozen. Double quote. Final straw came when I was working the box office with a line out the door. And she walked in with her 6-month-old screaming kid. Put her in the box office and told me to watch her while she counted drawers. 9 of us quit the next week. The day before Phantom Menace came out. He might have been lying. But a co-worker claimed when she was near tears about what she was going to do without half the staff. He handed her a dime and told her to go hire some more. I was a waitress at a shitty diner. The fellas there were always flirty and handsy. They'd talk about me in Spanish so I only understood a little of what they were saying. One guy tried to follow me home so I went to a friend's house instead. The customers would complain about the cockroaches and the owner would yell at us for relaying the message. The waitresses all did a lot of drugs and would try to pressure me into their lifestyle. One day while I was filling the rice pudding cups, one of the bar employees mopping walked up and demanded I move. I asked him if he could ask instead of being rude, and he hit my legs with the mop and knocked me over. I went to the bathroom and cried in private for a minute, pulled myself together, handed my tickets to the manager and walked out. My father's story. He was a 22-year-old millwright and he had been working for the company for 4 years. He asked for a raise because one was given to a co-worker who had the same job. He was told that his co-worker has kids and a family to provide for, and that's why he was given a raise. And since my dad had no children at that time, he didn't need one. My dad applied for a job that paid almost twice as much with great benefits. He gave in his notice and the manager said, "Will you stay if we give you the raise you wanted?" He declined and worked for the second company for 35 years and retired last December. Close bracket. I started smoking when I was 14 and I tried quitting several times. The smell of tobacco was so alluring. The thought of it brought mild euphoria. I couldn't get rid of the positive associations that went with my smokes. One hot day, I played racquetball for 2 hours with a friend. I was dehydrated and spent when I got home. The kind of spend where your body refuses to do anything. I ate and lit up my post-meal smoke and it didn't take but about 2 minutes before I threw up violently. I went to bed early and slept late. The next morning, when I went to light up my first cigarette, all I could think of was the smell and taste of vomit. I put out my Marlboro and swore I'd never smoke another one. I haven't. I work at an ice cream place. During the winter season we get almost no business. About 10% of the summer's business. With the coronavirus, many businesses are being closed. I had to leave early one day because my mom did not want me at work. I still live at home. I work with a few different managers, shift leads, but our boss is very selfish and careless. He called me the next day to tell me how f'd up it was that I left that day. He knew the whole story and knew it wasn't my fault, and I said I'm sorry. But I am not even 18 yet and don't want to get kicked out of my house for not obeying my parents. He then said that he needs me to be reliable, which was the last straw. Mind you, this is the first time anything has ever happened like this since I started. I've never called out once. I was 16 last summer and at an ice cream place there are a lot of teenagers who call out half of their shifts. The whole summer I worked 6 or 7 days a week because I always took people's shifts when they called out. I was so reliable all summer and him saying that to me was the end. I'm not working a minimum wage job and not being appreciated for anything I do there. Fuck him. I quit. Back in '01 I was working at Blockbuster as a cashier. My boss called me up and said that there was some new policy that said men were not allowed to have long hair. At this time my hair was around my shoulders and I had been growing it out for about a year or so. I was not about to cut my hair because FCK that. So I told my boss I am not cutting my hair. He said something about how it was policy and they could work with me if I cut it a little or something. I was like, nah man. I'm not doing that. I quit. And that was that. Personal story. As part of a college course, I had to get some work placement hours at places related to the field of study. Because it was hard to find available places, they allowed charity shops. We were allowed a maximum of 16 hours a week and we needed 500 hours to pass the course. When I started, I was averaging 10-12 hours, but a month in, I needed a minor procedure on my foot which meant I had to miss a couple days. After which I would have been fine to return to my normal hours. When I came back, I was scheduled for an hour and a half. They told me they didn't want to push me too far. I thanked them and let them know that I was fine to return to my normal amount of hours and showed them the information pack that said as such. Next week, the same thing happened. An hour and a half for the whole week. There were others from my course volunteering there who were still getting 10-16 hours a week. The third week, I asked for my hours to be increased only to be told that it wouldn't be fair on the others. I stayed for 5 weeks after my hours were cut before I said FCK it. If I stayed, I wouldn't have met the course requirement. It wasn't the only reason I left, but it was the final straw. The general manager was a bit of a BTCH, but the assistant manager was cool. I know I am late. But this is my disgusting story. A friend of mine killed himself nearly a decade ago. When I requested the day off for his funeral, my request was denied. I had to go to work after going to the funeral of my 21-year-old friend. I was an event captain, so I had to be the face of the staff for the contact of the event. I tried my hardest to put on a happy face, but I failed. My mood was shit, and the event contact complained to my boss after the event. The next week I was scheduled as an event server for my whole schedule. Less hourly pay, less tip percentage. When I asked my boss, I was told that I had been demoted because of the complaint from the prior event. I quit on the spot. I should not have been forced to work that day. And I should not have been demoted for being in a bad mood after burying one of my closest friends. FCK that place. 2 cases. 1. 16-hour days at an amusement park. There's an exception in the US labor code that says that amusement park employees don't have to be paid overtime if they are seasonal. And wouldn't you fking know? Every employee in the park was seasonal. 2. 1 work day at a greenhouse was 8:00 AM to 1:00 AM. You're not misreading that. I didn't even bother coming into work the next. Ever. FCK that shit. I worked as a server at a fancy theater. We were all students but were expected to be professional servers even though they hired everybody without experience because there was such a high turnover rate. So New Year's Eve comes by. Nobody wants to work and my best work friend, female, volunteers to work that night. The night is a huge shitshow. The manager already had some existing anger issues and because of a misunderstanding he thought my friend was trying to steal money. What could have been talked out easily escalated to him pushing her against a wall so hard that she dislocated her shoulder. She went to the hospital after because the police told her that she needed a doctor's confirmation if she wanted to press charges. 1 week goes by. She decides she will not press charges and the guy is still working there. She is getting no shifts and when another server gets sick she just takes the shift and shows up. The manager that pushed her and a higher manager that also worked there call her into the office and tell her that she is fired. I just took off my apron and walked out with her. After 1 month about 3/4 of the staff also quit and it really fk'd them over. Worked at the Source, Canada, and had a weird situation. We had a PlayStation 1 in the back that never hit the shelves many years before and kinda just sat there. After almost a year of working there, we got to talking about this PlayStation to find it didn't show a normal price in the system. A month goes by and we're still discussing it when a fellow employee's PlayStation died. Another employee sold him the one from behind at the price listed in the system. 6 months later get a list from corporate to return items and sure enough, somehow this many years old item is on the list. The Source came in and cleared house of anyone thought to have interacted with the transaction. I was the only employee remaining. They had me run a store solo for a week, impossible, before bringing a manager from a neighboring town. The manager walks in and starts running his mouth about everyone and everything while literally having me do every single task by myself while he yelled. By lunch break I had enough. Walked out back. Grabbed my things. Sandwich in hand I walked out telling him to have a great day and went back to my previous tech job. Worth it. I used to be a server at a restaurant that was a quarter mile down the road from a large concert venue in northern Michigan. Concert nights were always fking crazy but paid well so it was all good. I was assigned patio which had 13 tables split between 2 servers. The issue is, my other server didn't show up so I had the entire patio to myself for ZZ top night. On top of this, I had a 21 top come in and take up half of my section. They weren't attending the concert and I told them that due to it being super busy and them being a large group, food would be at least an hour. They were fine with this. I'm with them every 3-5 minutes filling drinks and bringing booze wine. It took about 1:30 for them to get their food and everyone was in good spirits the entire time. They ended up staying for 4 hours raking up a 4-digit bill. Thank you booze for that, and everything was fine until I being that out. It was like a switch flipped. They started yelling and complaining that I was horrible and all went inside to speak to my manager who mind had not helped out a bit during the entire ordeal. She camped everything but alcohol, removed the 20% auto gratuity, and the table ended up leaving me $12. My manager then pulled me aside and gave me a warning telling me she didn't think I could handle being a server. Yo, I was pretty well f***ing done. If you are reading this, Barb, FCKU. You are the worst boss I have ever had. Worked for a boss who micromanaged everything and was just an ass about everything in general. I came into work at 6:56 AM and clock-in time was 7:00. Instead of clocking and then going to the bathroom, I went to the bathroom first instead of using company time. I clocked in at 7:01 AM and he went off on me for being 1 minute late. He saw me sit my stuff down and go to the restroom, so he knows I wasn't truly late. This wasn't the first time he yelled about something so small, but that day was the last. I didn't say fuck this. I quit. I said fuck you. I quit. I reported him to human resources 2 days later for the ridiculous behavior. Come to find out, this was not the first time he had been reported for a toxic work environmental. My friend in that department told me he was fired that next week. Happy ending to my fuck this. I quit story. Asterisk. Asked for a small raise after 1 year. $1 HR and was making $20. I was underpaid and we all knew it. They offered me 50 cents. I showed them I was saving them 70-100k a year. They wouldn't budge. I gave my notice right there. Got my last check, no yearly bonus. I was owed $1,000. They told me they didn't have to pay me since I quit. I said that's cool. I'll call OSHA later today and cited 5 big violations they hadn't addressed. Suddenly I got my bonus. Had an internship at a big supermarket chain in my country. It was July and it was hot as FCK. In fact, it was the hottest ever recorded in Mu country during the last 2 decades, and it was also Ramadan, where we have to fast all day. My internship should have consisted with desk duty and how paperwork is conducted. Instead, I was told to go to the delivery area and help load and unload trucks. I had a whole month of this. I did 5 days and I almost broke my fast a few times because of how hot it was and working directly under the scorching sun. I just said FCK it. It's not worth doing slave work with zero pay and people yelling at me every 10 minutes. My first job. I was assigned to a specific area, and I thought I was doing my job well. One Monday, I was pulled into the office and asked why, whatever thing it was, I don't remember, hasn't been done for the last 2 weeks. I replied I wasn't aware it was part of my duties. My supervisor said he was putting me on a mandatory non-paid vacation for 2 weeks. No warning. No explanation on why I all of a sudden had to do work for a different department. So I said don't worry about it. I quit. Double quote. It was a lousy job anyway. I was only getting paid 18 hours a week but was doing more than that. 16 and stupid, I guess. First job at McDonald's. 3 different managers all telling me to do different things, and getting mad when I listened to the others. I overheard the worst manager say to the people at the register, and many customers behind the counter, that someone need to teach Alice how to do her job. Double quote. I didn't even say anything. Just walked out. I was fractured my orbital socket in an industrial accident. Another employee lost focus at the wrong time, was supposed to wait for a hand signal and didn't. We had been working over 90 days straight of 13-14 hour shifts and living in crappy motel a 45-minute drive from our work site. We were supposed to be on a rotation where we didn't work more than 3 weeks at a time. It was a close call and could have been a lot worse. I'm glad I saw it coming and had time to at least try and get out of the way. I got sent away after a night in the ER while the rest of that crew continued to work. After spending 2 or 3 days at home, the boss called to say that he needed me in Alaska in 2 days and that my flight was already booked. Told him I quit right on the spot.